Welcome to Season 2 of Griddyiron Gang. What we got for you today is a little bit of a free agency recap and a Griddyiron Gang mock draft. We will be alternating picks, starting with you as the Carolina Panthers at number 1. And with that being said, let's not keep the people waiting. Let's get right into it.
All right, so we're jumping on board here. Carolina with the first pick. They obviously traded with Chicago Bears earlier in the offseason. I don't necessarily recall the whole details for the trade. I know Chicago got DJ Moore in return. Obviously, they went down to 14 or something.
9, I believe.
9. Yep. Okay. But I think obviously this is a Carolina move to get their quarterback of the future. The question is, which quarterback is this going to be at number 1? For a while now, I've been going in my head with CJ Stroud, because it feels like that'd be the correct move for me in this situation. But as of late, what I've been hearing and reading is that Bryce Young had 2 visits with Houston, and one with Houston, one with Carolina. And then he all of a sudden canceled the rest of his visits.
Okay.
So that leads me to believe that he ain't falling below 2.
Okay.
And so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and assume Carolina's grabbing Bryce Young at number 1. They feel confident and comfortable with him. And to me, I've always had a problem with Ohio State quarterbacks. They come in and they're not necessarily the most pro-ready. They either take a while to get to that point or they fizzle out fairly quickly.
Right.
With Bryce Young, the size is a big question mark on him, but he probably is the most ready out of all quarterbacks when you're talking about leadership, talking about winning, and just having that ability to rally your team around you. So I feel comfortable with Carolina going with Bryce Young in this pick, and I think you got Adam Thielen as a vet receiver who comes in this offseason. That'll help him big time, because he's gonna get thrown out there. Like, he's not just gonna. They're not picking him to sit on the bench. Like, he'll be playing right away. And then you get DJ Chark coming in there. Carolina, they do have a solid defense as well, so they're not gonna be. I don't feel like this pick is gonna hurt them at all. It will help them. It's just a matter of how much it helps them, because they do have a fairly good roster to win right now. It's just all gonna fall on the shoulders of Bryce Young in his young career, being able to get them at least to the playoffs.
I like that pick. I think in my heart, he feels like the best quarterback, but on paper, I'm probably going to go with a bigger quarterback. I just feel more comfortable with that in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But intangible-wise, clutch-wise, calmness-wise, awareness-wise, the ability to throw the ball, decision-making, I think Bryce Young is the right pick here. And with some of the moves you mentioned, two wide receivers to replace the production of DJ Moore. You do have Hayden Hurst, I believe, who also came over there. Yep. Miles Sanders, the running back as well. Yep. So. And we didn't mention Andy Dalton, I don't think. So he's not a guy that's going to have to get thrown in there right away.
No, he won't have to. I just don't believe they want to pick him number 1 overall and say, okay, you're going to back up. Like, they're not. I don't think too many times teams will try to play that mind game with the young guy where they have signed a veteran this offseason and they're going to start him out with the keys to the offense. And then all of a sudden we go 1, 2, 3 weeks by and everyone's pounding the table for the young guy. And you have that weird dimension in the locker room around your organization of why didn't we start him all along? To me, Andy Dalton is a terrific backup and a guy to lead and mentor him as the year goes on. There's no reason to start Andy Dalton over Bryce Young right away. I just think that will. I
agree.
I just think that's stupid, especially with a new head coach in Frank Reich, who is a pretty good ball coach. And you got a whole new fresh start in that organization all around. So I just feel like this is the time.
You traded up.
Yeah, and this is the time. Like, yeah, that's a all in move to get that quarterback of the future. And I just think whether there's growing pains or not, you got to ride it out with him and make him learn on the fly. And he's only going to get better. I mean, I don't see Bryce Young being one of. To me, Bryce Young, he kind of has that the physical tools and size of kind of Kyler Murray, but to me, Kyler's maybe a little smaller than him. Mm-hmm. For me, Bryce Young, though, I feel more confident. Like when I look back on Kyler's draft year, I was saying he should just stick with baseball. I didn't have any confidence in him to be a big time quarterback in the NFL, and it's proving to be that way. He's too immature. The leadership's terrible, and that organization is quickly becoming a dumpster fire. Yeah. So I have a lot, but like compared to this draft now with these quarterbacks, and especially Bryce Young, I feel more confident because of where he's coming from with a coach like Nick Saban. That mentality is instilled in him, and he's a winner, but he's also a pretty damn good quarterback. So it's just, I think this would be a good situation for him, especially with a, QB guy like Frank Reich leading the way as well. And then you got veteran receivers to help you out and a tight end to help you out and a damn good running back too. So, I mean, it's going to be, don't sleep on the Panthers this year, not at all. They're going to, I think Bryce Young is the way to go the more I think about it. So that's my pick at number 1. I feel like they're going to really like that pick. And yeah, I don't have any worries about Bryce Young. I do think he's going to be a pretty good quarterback in this league for some time.
Not mad at that. You did mention you're not a fan of the Ohio State quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not either. We've seen a lot of them flame out. I do, however, think Houston will go with C.J. Stroud at the number 2. They do have 2 top 15 picks this year. Mm-hmm. They did bring in Case Keenum, who, similar to Andy Dalton, is a really good backup quarterback, average to below average starting quarterback. So kind of a similar situation to Bryce Young, where we don't know if he's going to start right away, but probably should given the circumstances of those teams. And similar to the Panthers, Houston has a lot of weapons that came in. Devin Singletary, 2 wide receivers as well, Noah Brown and Robert Woods. And then they got Dalton Schultz from the Dallas Cowboys as well. So he decided to stay in Big Texas because that contract was probably bigger in Texas than it would have been anywhere else. And I think Houston goes ahead and makes this move with C.J. Stroud here at the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the pick you got to go with because I feel like DeMeco Ryans and Houston have Bryce Young pegged as their guy. I think you have to go to the next best option in C.J. Stroud. But at the same time, C.J. Stroud makes me very nervous when I think of his long-term outcome in the league because he's not a Justin Fields, and he has put up impressive stats and games at Ohio State, but he's also put up some very iffy performances. And
I don't think he has a Big Ten title. I think he's the only one of those guys who came out.
And what he did in the Rose Bowl this past year, I mean, that was a hell of a game
against Georgia.
Yeah, that was a hell of a game. But at the end of the day, he was when he lit it up, he lit it up. But when he was off, it was like, what the hell is this? Yeah, it's and that's what you get with a lot of these big time Big Ten quarterbacks. It's not SEC ball, and. The thing about Big Ten football is a lot of those teams, especially Ohio State, Michigan, they don't have an SEC type schedule. They have half, if not more, games against terrible teams. Not terrible, but like the middle of the pack to bottom feeder Big Ten teams, which aren't anywhere close to SEC football. So, and that's why I think SEC football, you see a lot more long-term NFL talent come out of that conference than you do Big Ten. I mean, Big Ten, where you're seeing more of the big boys come out on top a lot of the times, I think. But playmaking and all that stuff, SEC all day.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so pick 3, Arizona. This, I mean, I don't know. Arizona is so hard you got stuff coming out about the owner and the GM, using burner phones to when Steve Keim got suspended or whatever it was, there, burner phones to keep in contact with him and what moves are we making? What are we doing this week to get the roster set and all that? Okay. And so, I mean, and then you got obviously the guy who I don't remember his name, but came out with this leaked info saying that there's, racial stuff going on as well, and it's a shit show in Arizona. But remember earlier in the offseason, they had the NFLPA, that little thing where the players graded out how they felt their organization treated them, or what,
That's off to you.
Arizona was damn near bottom of the barrel.
Okay.
I think Washington was actually dead last, but Arizona was right next to them. Mm-hmm. And then Vikings signed Byron Murphy, cornerback, this offseason, and he kind of made a little jab at Arizona in his press conference, or his introductory press conference, and he said something along the lines of, "Yeah, I'm happy I don't have to pay for my own lunch now." Okay. So word is, they're making their players pay for their own lunch in the cafeteria and stuff like that. And what kind of team does that in the NFL, bro? These are pro athletes.
Buda Baker also wants out. That's the word on the street.
Well, and that's and then you sign, Viking special teamer Chris Boyd, labeled as a cornerback, but barely saw the field. Mm-hmm. And it's like, so you sign him, then Buda wants out. It's just. And then you got, I don't know who came out and said it, but you got one of your old linemen saying Kyler needs to grow up. And I wouldn't want to go to Arizona.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't.
That's a shit show.
It's bad news all around. But with this third pick, I'm going to go ahead and pick edge Will Anderson from Alabama. I think that, you got J.J. Watt retiring.
Yeah.
Your D line's in shambles.
Yeah.
You got to have, and it could go one or two ways. I think you got Jalen Carter there. Will Anderson. Those are the top two I think you go with, but you can't ever have you can't ever be too good at edge in the league. You just have to get over after the quarterback. So that's why I lean Will Anderson here, and I don't think anyone in this spot who is getting drafted by Arizona is going to be that thrilled, but at least you got good weather, I guess.
I think Will Anderson's a good pick here. Like you said, J.J. Watt retired. You didn't really get the production replacement when you let go of Chandler Jones. Mm-hmm. And I also think this could be who you thought Anthony Simons could be. Or,
right.
Excuse me, what's his first name? Justin Simmons could be.
Justin
Simmons, yeah. So I don't mind that pick at all. And of course, Alabama guy. We got two of them in the top three. That's what we do. Number 4, we have Indianapolis now. Similar to the first team I talked about in Houston, you got a quarterback who is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league, but a below average to average starting quarterback in Gardner Minshew. A couple weapons in Isaiah McKenzie and Ashton Doolin, a wide receiver, but nothing really to hang your hat on in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. You did lose Paris Campbell, so your weapons are a little scarce out there, wide receiver, but you're in complete rebuild mode. And I think since you are in complete rebuild mode, you go with Anthony Richardson here at quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's. He's to me AR. Me being a Gator fan and watching him play, you think about it, he only had 1 full year as a starter.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And you shouldn't like that. But he also had no NFL talent around him as playmakers to do anything with. And what he was able to still do is impressive. And I think he's got by far the highest ceiling out of all of these quarterbacks in this draft. If he puts it together, if he lands in the right situation, I'm a little iffy on Indy being the right situation.
Yeah.
But if you're able to come in, put in the work, and improve and get your game right. The thing is, I will say about AR is I haven't seen a guy with that much arm strength in quite some time. I think he can come in and have the strongest arm in the league right now over Josh Allen. It's there. He can throw the football damn near 150 yards, it seems like. The only thing is there's times where he needs to find touch on the football, and that's a big issue because he just rockets everything from 5 yards to the long ball. It's a rocket, and that's when you watch the Gators last year. There were so many drop passes because they just couldn't handle how hard he threw the ball.
Yeah,
and that's what worries me because you got it in the NFL. I do like the attitude he had where he said, this offseason, pre-draft combine or whatever, where he was just like, I don't give fuck how hard I throw the ball. You better catch the ball. And
Yeah.
I like that mentality. And I like, that attitude. But at the end of the day, you being a quarterback, leader of the team, you got to know that's the difference between NFL and college. You got to know when to have that touch and the right placement on the ball. And so it's going to be interesting, for me, because in my honest opinion, I don't believe AR has proved enough to be a first round pick.
No,
so
this is not what
this
I would
is.
do.
This is highly. I mean, and this is I guess a perfect spot because you're lucky you got Indy's picking here because they need to do. They've had the quarterback issues they've had since Peyton left, or I should say Andrew Luck retired. It's just they swing and a miss every year.
Yeah.
So you gotta hit on this because this is like the last ditch effort before that city wants Ursay to get the hell out of there.
This is his last chance for sure.
So you gotta hit on this, and I hope and pray, AR, if this is the pick, that it works out because I'm a huge Richardson fan. I believe in him, but
that's scary for him because
there's a lot to live up to.
He does have the highest potential. He probably has the lowest floor right now out of everybody.
I agree
that we've talked about so far.
Yep.
And with no weapons around him. Jonathan Taylor having a down year, so who knows if he's peaked or not. I mean, it's a tough situation.
It is. And I will say, like, we're going through this mock and not making trades or guessing trades, or anything.
Sure.
So it's who knows? This is if we're just mocking this up as if there is no trades. Just giving our thoughts on which team should select who where. So, but we obviously know there's going to be some trades that go down first round. There's always is. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of how many. And I mean, I feel like there are, at least 3 to 5 teams who will want to try to move up into the top 10 to get a guy like AR, who probably is a better, fit for him.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be interesting to watch this draft play out and see, how it goes. Because I mean, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces just because, especially I think Carolina trading up that high to number 1 with Chicago and Chicago, stealing everything away from Carolina damn near. I mean, they played them pretty, but
that might turn out to be Rudy Gobert-esque right there.
Right, yeah. I mean,
we'll see.
Being a fan of the Vikings,
because this is not Andrew Luck at number 1 here.
No, it's not.
This is a risk anywhere you go.
It is. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, that's why I like this mock draft season and everything. It's just so many ways this could go, but I just I like the pick there for AR, but at the same time, I do hope he goes to a different team. I don't see Indy being the team for him. And that's just my opinion, but
what are the Seahawks going to do?
So at number 5, Seattle, man. They re-signed Geno. This could be another team that goes for a quarterback in the future, I believe. But since you just re-signed Geno,
Andrew Luck,
I just don't think this is Andrew Luck. I just don't think you make that move. Who knows how much longer? I feel like I say this every year, but who knows how much longer Pete Carroll has left?
Something's in that bubble gum, man.
I swear. But I think, for me, it's just I really believe that you gotta go. I mean, you go a few different ways here, but to me, it's they brought back Bobby Wagner, which I like to see. I don't know why you got rid of him in the first place. That was kind of stupid. But so for me here, I
like bringing over Devin Bush too. They can potentially do some damage.
Yeah, and the way their defense just completely shit the bed halfway through the season last year was so disappointing because they were that surprise team that came out of nowhere and was wheeling and dealing for a while. Mm-hmm. And I just think man. Here, though, you're in a tricky spot because for right now, I'm going to say no quarterback here. But, I mean, when you have a guy like Will Levis there, I know they've been linked to him this offseason. It's, but we're not going to do that. So, for me, it's either I'm going probably solidifying O-line or D-line somehow. And if I'm Seattle, I'm taking the best player available, and that's Jalen Carter.
I agree with that.
So, I mean,
I love the thinking of upgrading the O-line, but I think it's a little bit of a stretch to go ahead and get.
Well, I think if you go O-line here, you're reaching.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why you can't.
That's what I'm
That's
saying.
why when you look at the draft like this, and you are thinking like, we need to upgrade this O-line spot, but then you're like, this guy's the best player available, and
He's the best player on the board. Period.
Yeah, and that's how teams you have to think. Like it, even if you think you're solidified in that spot, and that guy is still there, and you know he's gonna be a star in the league or one of the studs down the road, you gotta grab him.
Take a chance.
Because guys like that, no matter if that position group is crowded or not, they still help your team out in a major way. So I just don't like the thinking of having to reach on someone when you're already, a top 5 pick and you got the best player available sitting there. And they do need help on defense still. So
they do.
Get that D-line. Get a guy like Jalen Carter on your D line and just
on the front 7 specifically.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I believe that's the way to go for Seattle, just based on how that defense underperformed throughout the year towards the end last year.
For sure, I don't mind that at all. Without the off the court stuff or off the field stuff, Jalen Carter is by far the best prospect on the board. Being able to get him at number 5, that's big. At a position of need, that's huge. So I have no argument.
And I think I think Seattle is truly eyeing either Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. I really think those
are probably the 2 guys that'll be there.
Yeah,
you got to assume 3 quarterbacks will be off the board. Somebody trades up, maybe 4. So you're gonna get one of those guys who I think are the 2 best players on here.
Yeah.
Detroit at number 6. We know the offense was great last year. 5th in points, 4th in yards. We know where they struggled. Defensively, they were 28th in points, 32nd in yards. In the offseason, they tried to shore that up a little bit. They got 2 safeties in C.J. Gardner-Johnson and C.J. Moore. That's not going to be enough, man. I think they're going to go ahead and go with Witherspoon, the DB out of Illinois.
Okay.
Especially after the loss of Jeff Okudah, who ended up in Atlanta this offseason. They're going to have to do some more to shore up that secondary. Jeff Okudah has been a little bit of a disappointment in his career, but he did have a fairly good season last year in Detroit. So somebody you definitely want to replace out there, especially if you're going to be going against guys like JJ and
that's the
DJ
thing.
Moore now in Chicago. You need somebody out there who's going to be a number 1 or at least can contend with those number 1 receivers. So I like that pick right there.
Yeah, and that this is going to be an interesting pick because I do feel like they're going to go D-back here. It's just a matter of who, because I've heard Witherspoon. Obviously, I think Witherspoon is probably technically the most pro ready out of anyone. But I've heard Detroit is like, really.
Yeah, good luck with the Oregon players.
They really like that Christian Gonzalez guy. So,
he's good. I like Witherspoon. He seems a little more hard nosed.
It's gonna. We'll see who they pick, but I think regardless they do go D back. I mean they gotta fortify that defense even more, because once that defense comes around, we know they can score points.
They'll eventually get their quarterback in there that they want.
I mean,
it's gonna be dangerous.
Look, I think right now as it stands, Detroit's got the most bets on them to go to the NFC Championship this year.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that your feeling, or you?
No, I read that.
Really? Yeah. That's fucking crazy.
I think people are expecting them to take the biggest jump out of any team this year.
They'll take a big jump.
And I think, we'll obviously have some episodes where we're talking thoughts on the season, but Detroit, they're fucking, after all these years, man, they're making me worry.
They're like the Sacramento Kings right now.
It's crazy, but you know what? It's hard to hate them because I do like Dan Campbell. I do like the players they're bringing in. It's not like I've always said it. For me, yeah, they're a rival, but it doesn't have that Green Bay or Chicago rivalry taste in my mouth. It's just because we've always beaten them, and so it's not like to me, it's not like a heated rivalry. I know for them it may be that they hate us like that, but for me, it's like, I actually don't mind seeing the Lions do well. Because I feel like, fan bases who go through that kind of a struggle deserve some type of success at some point.
That's for sure.
So, I can't hate on them. So, yeah, but I do think, I like the Witherspoon pick. I feel like D-back is the place they will go, but we'll see there.
So 3 defensive players, 3 quarterbacks.
And now we got...
Are you going to make it 4?
This is going to be an interesting pick here at number 7 with the Raiders. For me, man, you just brought in Jimmy Garoppolo, right? I think that's a big part of I think that's a big Josh McDaniels, hand in that
for sure.
But how long are you sticking with him is the question.
As long as he's healthy, so 8 to 11 games.
When you got a guy like Will Levis,
hopefully he's ready by then.
This is kind of I just don't see a guy like Will Levis falling this much farther. I just feel, look, the next pick is going to be Atlanta, and they already have Desmond Ridder, so I don't think he goes there. But I could see them going Will Levis, but I hate doing that for the same reason I hated what was the other one I just did. But you already signed Jimmy G. He is a proven winner. I don't know how much success he will have without Shanahan. That's what worries me.
Mm-hmm.
But he is a proven winner. But I don't think, when I look at it this way, you get rid of Carter, replace him with Jimmy G. Yeah. It doesn't scream major upgrade. It just doesn't.
Right.
So it's a little
it's a downgrade for me, honestly.
Yeah. So I could see them taking a chance on a guy like Will Levis. But at the end of the day,
make it official, man.
Nah, there's some holes on this team where I can't do it. I'm going Peter Skoronski.
All right, Big Pete.
So for me, I say this just because like the Las Vegas Raiders have such a putrid O-line.
It wasn't that way a few years ago. They were actually really good. They were the Cowboys, but it just deteriorated so quickly.
It's bad.
It's terrible now.
So, and if you're gonna protect your new signing,
who does have injury history, the more you say it, the more.
Yeah, like I said, you could go Will Levis here. You go O-line, which I just did, but you're kind of in a tricky spot here. I think this is an area of the point in the draft where we start seeing probably our first trade or two.
We might have them before this, but this little 6 to 9, 6 to 10 is tricky.
It is, because you look at the board and there's not many guys that pop out on you like, oh, they're going to improve my team drastically. This is the part of the top 10, top 12 where I'm just like, I'm cool with trading back.
I can see more teams who think they're contenders trading up to try and get that missing piece.
Yeah, and these guys might be that. But I just feel like we're at a point, though, if you're a team that's in the kind of middle of the pack of rebuilding, you're comfortable trading back, getting more assets later in the draft.
Yep.
So this is a tricky spot in the draft that we're in right now. But yeah, I'm gonna go Peter Skoronski, tackle for the Raiders here at number 7.
Not bad. So we do have the quarterback on the board still. You did mention Desmond Ridder was drafted last year by Atlanta. Mm-hmm. They did bring in Taylor Heineke, so I'll kill the suspense right now. We're not going to draft Will here to Atlanta. They did bring over Matt Collins, who outside of Devontae Adams was a very consistent weapon for the Raiders and probably their most consistent weapon last year in the passing game. So I do like that move, especially. We obviously know they're not going to have Calvin Ridley coming off his suspension. He'll be with Jacksonville. So they need some more weapons out there. Him and Drake London, hopefully a healthy Kyle Pitts. That'll be a nice, decent attack out there.
Are they going to give Kyle Pitts that love now, finally?
What love are you referring to?
I'm just, we say every year since he's been in the league,
receptions,
like, get him involved, targets. Get him involved. I mean, he is more of a receiver in my eyes. So for me, you got to kind of get the right game plan to get him involved. I think if you add, we'll see what you pick here, and then I can continue on. But I just want to see my guy Drake Kyle Pitts get some love out there.
Yeah, me too, for sure. There is some speculation on Lamar being a quarterback in Atlanta in the future. Calais Campbell was a defensive lineman from Baltimore that made his way to Atlanta now. And then safety Jesse Bates came over from Cincinnati. And then, like we mentioned earlier, cornerback Jeff Okudah to shore up that secondary. A.J. Terrell, Casey Hayward, I think, moved on. So a lot of moves for Atlanta. Nothing really big, but they are filling some holes that I think are pretty decent and pretty noticeable. Middle of the pack to bottom of the league in pretty much every category you look at for Atlanta, except for rushing the ball offensively. I think as a team, you've struck on this time and time again, and that's edge rusher. Vic Beasley, you've seen guys like him not work out before, but I think this time you're going to go Tyree Wilson, edge out of Texas Tech.
Okay.
And I just think he's the best player available at this spot, and for team need, that's what Atlanta would do. But like we said last pick with your Las Vegas Raiders, this is definitely a possibility for Atlanta to trade back.
Yeah, I agree. And we're at another spot, pick 9 here with Chicago. I feel like they could even trade back again
with the Vikings
and get some more capital. So, but for me, I don't know. Chicago here, you make that trade with Carolina.
Chicago, so uncharacteristic. 32nd in points allowed, 29th in yards allowed. That's not what we expect from a Chicago Bears team.
No.
But they did run the ball well.
Listen, you brought in Tremaine Edmonds. You got DJ Moore.
All this will help.
Robert Tonyan, which, he's kind of been not doing much the past couple of years. I think he's had injuries and everything piled up. But I think with Chicago, you got to probably keep going defense here. And I like the Christian Gonzalez pick here for Chicago. Okay. I think that you get a D-back in there. Move. And because, surprisingly, I mean, yeah, you want to upgrade the O-line, but surprisingly last year they were pretty good. I feel like they did their job protecting Justin Fields better than they did the previous year. They still had issues, obviously, but I think defense, you got to just it's kind of like Detroit. You just got to keep building that defense, and we're still in the NFL here, where I still believe defense wins championships. So you get that side of the ball to help out Justin Fields, and I mean this dude could still go crazy.
Oh, yeah, I'm not mad at that, but yeah, I pointed those numbers out. They definitely need some help on that side of the ball, man. Chicago needs to get back to the way they used to be. Yeah. They got some help in the offseason. They got some help. They replaced the running back. They got a receiver who can potentially be a number one for Justin Fields. With him and Mooney should be a nice little combination. So Eberflus, he definitely has his hands full, but I think he'll be able to put something together in this second season at head coach there in Chicago. At number 10, we have the Super Bowl runner-ups, Philadelphia Eagles, 3rd in points, 3rd in yards offensively, 8th in points, 2nd in yards defensively. You would say they don't have much weaknesses. They shored up their backup quarterback position after losing Gardner Minshew and Marcus Mariota. They lost Miles Sanders to the Carolina Panthers, but they replaced him with Rashad Penny from Seattle, and Boston Scott, they re-signed him, so the rushing attack should be back in full effect next year. They also brought back cornerbacks James Bradbury and Darius Slay, which was big. So now you have your two guys on the outside still. You did lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson, so maybe that's something you want to address later. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, two guys that you also brought back, but they're getting up there in age. And so since they're getting up there in age, I think the move here is going to be Mr. D-line out of Pittsburgh, Kalijah Kancey.
Okay. Yeah, I like this pick. I do think they need some more, D-line help. We saw first half of the year until they made that Linval signing and the Ndamukong Suh signing to help them in that. Their run defense was kind of putrid last year to start off. So I feel like you're gonna have another year of under his belt with Jordan Davis. He should help you significantly more. So I like this pick. I have nothing really to rebuttal on. I think to me, what at this spot in the draft, what can you do to truly dramatically improve your team?
For me, a team like Philadelphia, they do it the right way, and I think at this 10th pick, they're either going to go interior O-line. They could also go tackle too. I think Peter could have been a good pick here, but you took him. I don't think they're going to stretch for Paris Johnson, or interior D-line or somewhere along the D-line. I think they start from the inside out more times than not. And so I think that's where Philadelphia is going with this pick either way. Yeah. My board, the way it's going now, is Kalijah Kancey. So.
Yeah, I think now we're on number 11, Tennessee Titans. Man, to me, there's so many ways this team could go. I mean, you just lost Lawan, your big time tackle.
Yeah. Has he signed yet?
Honestly, I can't recall if he did sign.
I haven't heard either.
But you need more receiver help. I think it's looking like the Derrick Henry days are coming to an end at some point.
Do I hear a little Bijan?
Hey, don't be surprised if he goes higher than what people are saying, But I'm not going to go Bijan. This is tough. The way the board looks here, I don't know if I feel comfortable going Quentin Johnson the way PFF has this kind of laid out. I don't know if I think he's the number one receiver on the board for me. I do think receivers definitely a position to look at, but I'm also thinking, I think I got to go Paris Johnson here. It might be slight reach, but when you just lose a guy like Lawan and you still have Derrick Henry, you have to have a guy who can come in right away and fortify your O-line still. So, Paris Johnson, Ohio State tackle.
That's huge. Especially me, Houston at number 12. I came in at number 2, got my quarterback out of Ohio State. What I did not mention is that I re-signed my offensive tackle, Larry Matunzo, and that I brought over Shaq Mason in a trade. So, C.J. Stroud should be decently protected next year.
Mm-hmm.
And that protection should buy him a little bit of time to throw the ball to his former Ohio State mate.
Jackson.
Yeah. And we're just going to call him Jackson.
Hey,
and Dominican is good enough.
When you're a team like Houston and being as bad as you have been, and now you get a bright young head coach and D'Amico Ryans who is going to do great things with that defense, I believe, as they get the pieces there. To start off your draft with CJ Stroud and then his teammate Jackson Smith and Jigba, I feel like they already have instant chemistry, instant connection that can only help your offense this first season. Not saying it's going to be big numbers or anything, but you will have that productivity where you can produce decent numbers, score. Not saying you can score at will, but just to be able to move the ball for that team is huge.
Ideally, you're looking at these guys to be your stars. And not only are you looking at these guys to be your stars, if you remember last year, Houston made about 20, 25 moves in the offseason, filling in little role players along that roster. If these guys can come in and be what we expect them to be, or what some expect them to be, I think Houston has a real chance to be 5, 6, 7 wins this year and real contender.
Mm-hmm.
And, forcing a lot of teams to play harder than they thought. Being one of those teams where I thought this was going to be a cakewalk, but, Houston really plays tough. They're coached well by D'Amico Ryans, and they have a lot of Damian Pierce, good running back out of Florida they got last year. So they have some weapons, and they brought over a lot. So I think they're very dangerous as one of those teams this year. Not as a Super Bowl contender or anything like that, but one of those spoiler teams for sure.
No, I agree. I'm just trying to look at this next pick here, 13, New York Jets. Look, I mean, this could be a point in the draft where they finally get that Rodgers deal done.
I'm assuming we're not. If we're not there yet.
Yeah, and I don't know. But they brought in Alan Lazard, obviously, which I think him signing there kind of, you think automatically Aaron Rodgers is going to go there.
Right.
Because to me, that's why he based his decision on going there. Yeah, you re-signed Solomon Thomas, Quincy Williams, traded for Chuck Clark. Look, that defense is always going to be good, and they're still getting better. You get Robert Saleh is a huge deal, point in that, getting better. And for them, I mean, I think this is the year that they kind of, they're not going to say they're outright Super Bowl contenders, especially if they don't get Aaron Rodgers. If they get him, then we're talking like, okay, watch out for the Jets. But I think you still got to watch out for them because, I mean, they're just a couple pieces away from being right there.
They really are, yeah.
And I think, what's his name, who got hurt last year right away? Mekhi Becton, is that who it is? I don't know his time frame on return, but I feel like it's not going to hurt to get some more O-line help here, especially if you're going to go get Rodgers. And so for me, I think you go with the best lineman available in Darnell Wright from Tennessee at tackle.
I love it. My first mock I had, as much as I like Becton, as much of a physical freak that he is, he just hasn't been healthy the past 2 years. So my first mock I had Peter going there.
Okay.
So I don't mind that pick at all because I'm thinking the same thing. You pretty much have everything else solidified. We're doing this. Obviously, Rodgers isn't on the Jets, assuming he's not on the Jets. I did it that way, but even if he was, you want that tackle either way.
I think solidify that. Yeah, to get him as much protection as you can, especially in this point in his career. You saw when Green Bay went through those string of injuries again on the old line, and Rodgers was just flustered.
It's terrible.
Like he was frustrated. His thought process just wasn't normally how it is. So I feel like, you got the weapons out there, running back and receiver. I mean, your defense is really good. I mean, you just need to beef up that O-line a little bit and get more, even if it's just in depth but really good players along that line to help fortify it and make sure you have that protection for whoever is under center come first week of September. So
you got receivers out there. You're expecting to get Breece Hall back. I mean, you're good everywhere. Just O-line, I think that is the only way to go for the Jets at 13. 14, we have New England, bringing back cornerback Jonathan Majors, safety Jabril Peppers, kind of a hybrid safety. I really like him a lot. Bill Belichick uses him in a lot of ways that I think he wasn't used in Cleveland and other locations. Free agency-wise, to bring over James Robinson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Gesicki, a couple of offensive tackles to shore up that offensive line, and they're actually going to have an offensive coordinator this year. So I think
crazy, huh?
This New England Patriots offense is going to have quite a bit of a bounce-back season. I think where they go, though, is defensively maybe. Let me see here. You kind of keep taking my picks right before and leaving me fucking stuck. But I think I am going to go Lucas Van Ness here off the edge. You have lost a couple guys in the secondary. I just feel like this is the right pick right here. If you can get after the quarterbacks in your division with the edge player who's relentless and can consistently beat the tackle, I think that'll be very beneficial to those guys on the back end who maybe aren't that good. They are young. They are learning. They are getting better. And you do have some veterans back there to mix it in with them. Ideally, unfortunately, there's no linebackers projected in the first round, but that's really where the Patriots need to go here. But I'm going to go ahead and go with the next best thing with Lucas Van Ness.
Yeah, I like that pick. It seems like a Bill Belichick pick, and I don't know. I think New England. It's weird because I just think New England is in this weird situation these last few years. Like we're not used to New England being how they are.
And look, we can almost guarantee they're not picking here. Bill's trading this pick back.
Oh yeah,
he trades back every year. So
I agree.
They'll go ahead and get 2 picks at the top of the first round, get a linebacker in another position that we need.
Especially when you look at the draft board, I mean, it's
past 2 years linebackers.
There's gonna be quite some movement in this first round, I believe, and but I do think, I mean, what is there here for them at 14 that, especially offensively, that's gonna make them that much better.
I'm not the biggest Quentin Johnston fan. I know a lot of people are high on him, but
no, and that's why I would pick 15 here, Green Bay. Look, they're gonna have Jordan Love at quarterback.
You're gonna sabotage him?
What do you mean I'm gonna sabotage them? Here's the deal. This is gonna be this is gonna be an all-time Green Bay pick. Okay, they got Jordan Love at quarterback. You're set at running back. You still got Aaron Jones. You still got Godzilla thighs.
Yeah.
AJ Dillon. And you got Christian Watson, your draft pick last year.
The guy in Nevada, Dobbs.
I mean, you drafted these guys and they produced pretty well last year. You're sticking with them. You're not going to draft another receiver this year, first round.
Okay, I think we might agree then.
You're going tight end.
Oh, we definitely
Dalton
agree.
Kincaid.
We definitely agree.
So this is a Green Bay if any pick. Like they feel like they're set at wide receiver, which I can't blame them. So they go the next best thing, which they haven't had that great of production lately from tight end. Dalton Kincaid is by far the best tight end in this draft class. Got great hands, strong, little bit of speed. But look, a guy named Dalton Kincaid does not scream Green Bay, Wisconsin.
That's a perfect pick. You're losing you're losing Robert Tonyan. And like you said, Jordan Love is going to be that quarterback. What is a young quarterback's best friend? A running game and a tight end who can get open in the middle of the field. So that's where I had him going as well. Green Bay, Dalton Kincaid. You don't have your quarterback to replace Aaron Rodgers in the draft. Hopefully, Jordan Love is the guy who can do it, who's been on the roster for a few years. But you have other holes on that roster that you need to fill for sure, and that's a good one right there. Washington, I've said it already. So, again, no suspense. This is where they go quarterback. This is where your boy gets off the board. Will, quarterback out of Kentucky. He's there. He's the next Carson Wentz in my eyes.
I think he'll be better than Carson. Come on, dude. He's SEC football. Let's not compare SEC football to freaking D1 AA North Dakota.
I just feel like same body type, same skill set.
Look,
same haircut. Not a lot that I like about this guy.
I think I do think Will Levis will surprise some people because he went out there and balled the past couple of years. Does he scream like high upside? No. Does he make you want to jump up the draft board for him? No. But he's one of those guys who it's kind of like a Kirk Cousins type of guy where you are gonna have success with him for a long time.
I just think this is the guy here. I think defensively they're kind of set unless you're thinking about, is Deron Payne going to come back with that franchise tag or is he not? But then you're kind of reaching for Brian Brees. Offensively, we know the wide receivers are good. The running back room, they have two really good running backs. You're not really going to stretch and go get Bijan. Quarterback is probably the move here. Yeah, you got off Taylor Heineke, who's not great, but he has been good for you. And you brought in Jacoby Brissett, so I think it's a nice situation for him to sit there. He won't get the standard 6 to 8 weeks before he's shoved in there. He might get the whole season to sit behind Jacoby Brissett, honestly. I mean, he's a very solid quarterback. We know Ron Rivera is not a coach who's going to want to throw the season away. I just think that's where they go.
It'll be interesting. I think something tells me, I mean, you got what's his name? Coach out there.
What team?
Washington. Why am I blanking on his name?
Ron Rivera?
Ron Rivera, yeah. Who's a defensive guy.
Yeah.
Those type of head coaches love drafting young defensive talent. I feel like this is a spot where there's kind of a good amount of pretty good defensive backfield players that we're getting to. So I could see them going that way too if they wanted to. But yeah, with Will Levis there, I mean, I don't know. They brought in, who did they bring in this year for?
Jacoby
Brissett, and then he's battling it out with what's his name?
The guy from North Carolina.
Yeah. Why am I blanking on his name?
Yeah, Noel. No, it's not Noel. We'll figure it out.
Anyways, but yeah, I mean, it's not a dire need that they need to draft a quarterback. That's just my opinion. But if you feel like this could be your guy of the future, then yeah, grab him, especially at this point in the draft. But don't be surprised if it's defensive guy, or I mean, they could go offensive line too, but there's really not. We're in a tricky spot here where offensive line is. That's why I say there's a lot of these teams that can trade down
for sure.
Now we're at Pittsburgh, which, goodness gracious, they brought in Patrick Peterson. They just traded for Allen Robinson. Who's their safeties right now?
Minka. Couldn't tell you the other one off the top of my head.
I should have pulled up these depth charts, but see,
it's probably going to be Patrick Peterson.
That I heard that he would probably play there a little bit. What do you do here? Do you trade down if you're Pittsburgh? I mean, I don't know. It's just there's not. Pick 17, Pittsburgh Steelers. This is just what my gut's telling me at this point where our draft board is. And because of Mike Tomlin being Mike Tomlin and the Steelers being the Steelers, we're keeping it in the family and we're going Joey Porter Jr., cornerback, Penn State. I feel like Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, if an offensive guy that would need or would help them right away is not there, they're gonna keep adding to that defense
for sure.
So they're gonna keep building that defense because Mike Tomlin, that's what he predicates his team on, and when their defense is good, Steelers are always good. So, and I think Joey Porter would benefit so much from learning from a guy like Patrick Peterson, who's in the twilight of his career. And you can move around Patrick Peterson, whether it be a safety spot, playing a little bit of slot or whatever, and Porter can come in right there and play day one.
Yeah. I think Houston and Pittsburgh so far as the board sits, how we go about it, they're definitely in the best position because a position that Pittsburgh is great drafting on the offense is wide receiver. They have Quentin Johnson right there if they want to go that route.
Yeah.
But like you said, they did bring over Allen Robinson. And also, like you said, Mike Tomlin, he's going to add to that defense. Right here, you have 3-4 DBs that you could take. You have a couple D linemen. Yep. So he gets his pick of the litter right here, especially after a lot of offensive guys were in the run prior to this. So that's a good pick for Pittsburgh. So I'm on the clock here with Detroit. We mentioned what they did earlier, and earlier I went with Witherspoon, the DB out of Illinois.
Yep.
The offense is fine. They even shorted up in the offseason. They got a couple more pieces. Yeah, you lost Jamal Williams, but you brought over a rival from the Chicago Bears. I think you're going to be just fine offensively. Him and Swift going to be fine in running back. The receivers, we already know what that is. Top 5 offense coming to you soon out of Detroit. So I think what you do is you keep patching up that defense. Now the question is, do we go DB, safety, or D-line right here?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know some guys on the D-line have gotten a little older, and they were relying a lot on, some older bodies towards the end of the season. So part of me wants to feel like Brian Breesy is the pick here. Pair him up with Aiden Hutchinson. That could be very dangerous. I did go DB at 6. I really kind of want to go DB at 18 again, but I will go ahead and make a little bit of a stretch pick and go Brian Breesy, D lineman out of Clemson here.
Oh, they did bring over C.J. Gardner-Johnson, yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't really, okay.
Don't necessarily need 3 DBs.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do. I'll take as many DBs.
I think going D-line here is a smart move. Just because they do have some no-names on that D-line. Not saying they're bad, but what I'm saying is when you look at their depth D-line, it is bad.
Yeah.
So if you get that D-line solid and you have that first pick be a defensive back, I mean, this defense is already looking better than what it was last year.
By far.
Put it that way. Now we got Tampa Bay, no longer Tampa Bay.
This is just a fucking desert town, it seems like now. Everybody seems like they're 45. People want out.
You signed Baker freaking Mayfield.
You get Baker Mayfield in the offseason.
Jamal Dean, Levante David. Didn't they cut Fournette?
If they didn't, it's on the way.
Yeah, he's out of there. I mean, look, who else? There was someone else who requested a trade out of there just recently. The White, what's his name?
Devin White, linebacker at LSU. Yeah.
Shoot, we'll take him. God,
bro, to be a linebacker on the market this year, you're gonna be very coveted because this draft, you're not gonna find a lot of youth talent, at least high in the draft. Second, third round, that's where you're going to find those linebackers. But if you're looking for a guy to plug and fill, that's a great guy to have for a year or two.
Man, Tampa Bay, bro. Look.
Tampa, it's ugly all over.
It is. And I don't know which way to go because
this could have been a Levis.
It could have. But look, you still got to pick Quentin Johnson here. It doesn't make sense because you still got Mike Evans. You still got Chris Godwin. I mean, Brian Branch, Alabama, doesn't make sense. You got freaking Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah.
Like,
Brian Branch is such a good player, but safety is just not it's like running back. It's just not a very high position of need.
I don't really like where we're picking right now in this draft. So for me, let's see here. What is their absolute team needs here? All right, look, since you get the news that Devin White wants out, this and that. I'm going edge rusher Nolan Smith from Georgia.
Oh, Baltimore. We almost made it.
Is that what you're going for?
Hopefully.
I just think, I mean, look, I'm a big believer in edge rushing talent.
Yeah.
No matter if you don't need it or not, you can always make room for edge rushers.
Yeah.
So, and you can, there's so many different packages
like
and stuff on defense you can do and put them out there and they can make such a big impact in only a handful of plays that I just, especially with Tampa Bay, I mean, I just don't see them. I mean, the next best tackle on the board is Anton Harrison, Oklahoma, and he's damn near a second-round pick projected.
The next two tackles, him and Broderick Jones, are
like you can reach for them.
They're a little iffy,
but what are they? Is that big of a need where you need to make sure you have them to protect Baker Mayfield? I don't think so. This is a spot for Tampa Bay where. Maybe they don't pick Nolan Smith. Maybe this is a mock. Half this is probably going to be wrong. But at the end of the day, this is what I think you should do because, look, this team's still on the old side of things. So you can go O-line here. You can go D-line. You can go linebacker. You can go Brian Branch if you want to pair with Antoine Winfield. I don't know. I just feel like edge rusher at this point in the draft is probably the way to go for them.
Yeah, there's no wrong answer here, honestly. Unless you're reaching for a quarterback.
Yep.
That's pretty much the only bad way you can go if you're Tampa Bay. At pick 20, we have Seattle back on the clock. Can you remind me who you took at pick 5? Was it Jalen Carter?
I believe it was. Yes, it was.
Okay. So, Seattle did struggle on defense last year a little bit. 25th in points, 26th in yards. Jalen Carter will shore that up a little bit. If I'm looking at the offense, I think we're okay. I think the wide receiver duo is one of the best in the league. I think if we can keep K9 healthy, we're going to be okay in that aspect. And Geno, I don't expect him to be a Pro Bowler next year, but I do expect him to have a very good season comparable to what he did in 2022. I think the problem here, again, defensively, you did bring over 2 linebackers, Bobby Wagner, Devin Bush, so one of the big needs in that team was on that front 7. So if we're going to assume that they get Jalen Carter, I do like that those 3 additions right there. And with that being said, I'm going to also add to that and give them edge out of Clemson, Miles Murphy. Like you said,
now that we're getting a look at this new look Seattle defense, they can make some noise. I believe.
No question.
If they draft well this year, they will make some noise next year. As long as Geno doesn't regress somehow, they'll be just fine.
I think it's very possible for them to go wide receiver here. I just think Quentin Johnson is very similar to DK Metcalf. He's just a Dollar Tree version of that. So
yeah.
I think they want someone a little more versatile, even though DK Metcalf and Geno Smith have one hell of a connection right now. But a guy that's probably dropping if you're paying attention and you're like, wow, he hasn't gone yet. Well, that's my reason for not taking him here when this is a position where I think he definitely could go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're falling into that territory right now. And obviously, so next pick, Los Angeles Chargers. Boy, oh boy. I just think
it gets tricky, man.
It does.
It's real tricky.
Is Brian Branch going to be a free safety or a strong safety in the NFL?
He's going to be whatever Derwin James is not. Unless you just move Derwin to whatever and play Brian at his strength. But
because this, I feel like, would be a huge pick for them.
You know, who was your last team you had? Because I was feeling like a 2 safety defense isn't really what I'm looking for in the first round, but it's different when you're talking about Derwin James.
Well, and then all the pieces you already got in that defense.
I think, J.C. Jackson, that injury, I think you could look to replace that. I think the offensive line took some hits last year.
And, I mean, they upgraded. And the middle of the linebacker was huge for them, and a guy like Eric Kendricks. Yeah, he's not going to be what he was in coverage anymore. but he commands the defense so well and reads the offense so well and gets his guys in the right spots. I mean, look, you're set at cornerback damn near. I feel like you add Brian Branch next to Derwin James, and then you still got Khalil Mack and Bosa, and I mean that defense can be. They were let down last year, but they can be super nasty this year.
No question.
So with that being said, yeah, I'm giving them Brian Branch here, and I feel like the Chargers kind of are on a redemption tour this year.
Okay, I like that. I always like them to beef up that D-line. They give up a lot of rushing yards. They did again last year. There's speculation that Eckler may not be back. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can go with the Chargers. I'm not mad at that pick at all.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, people would want to say, oh, you got to protect Herbert. He's been hurt a couple years. But, I mean, whatever. You can't be mad at that. At number 22, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Now, offensively, middle of the pack last year. Defensively, third in points, ninth in yards. So, pretty happy with that as a Baltimore fan. We are losing Marcus Peters on the back end. I mentioned Calais Campbell on the front end. We did lose him already to Atlanta. Obviously, the big news, the only news, is Lamar Jackson. Is he going to sign? Is he not? We did re-sign Justice Hill at running back. We did bring over Nelson Aguilar and Odell Beckham Jr. at wide receiver. So, for me as a Ravens fan, that makes this pick a little bit easier, not having to stretch for Quentin Johnston right here, really not being a believer in his skill set at the next level as a number one receiver. I did mention the loss of Marcus Peters. You know what we do in Baltimore. You know what our identity is, similar to Pittsburgh and similar to what Chicago is going to try and get back to in our estimation.
Yep.
We're a defensive team. We're going to go DB Deontay Banks right here out of Maryland.
That's what I figured once that OBJ signing came to light was, okay, this is kind of I know what I'm getting in OBJ. I don't have to guess on a receiver in the first round and take that shot because we've been notoriously terrible at drafting receivers.
I'll take 900 yards and 7
so
touchdowns.
we know what we're gonna get. What's gonna please Lamar to get OBJ, and now we can focus on getting this defense back on track. So I agree. That's probably the pick I would have made too. And now with my Vikings right behind you at number 23. Since we're not doing trades, I don't know. I can't predict the future here. I feel like if they're going to do anything in the draft with a trade, they might trade up and try to get a quarterback of the future. But if we're doing this how we're doing it and we stay put, you're looking at probably defense. But in my honest opinion, I think a guy like Kevin O'Connell is going to go out and grab Quentin Johnston. And because this is why I say that. I believe Kevin O'Connell fell in love with a guy like Quentin Johnston throughout the draft combine process. And even Zay Flowers, I will say. But with a guy like Quentin Johnston, I have high hopes in him and believe in him. And why I would grab him here, especially the Vikings, is he doesn't have to go be a number one. He can be a great number two alongside JJ and makes our offense even better.
For most teams, I wouldn't like this, but you're in a really good situation, and this is honestly a position of need right here in this draft. You lost Adam Thielen to Carolina, who has taken a step back in his number two role at receiver. KJ Osborne has not stepped into that number two role for you, so I think opposite of JJ, this is actually a good fit for Quentin Johnston and, McConnell. Cousins, they love to throw that thing. So,
and that's the thing. I think we're going to start seeing more news and rumors come out as to probably Dalvin Cook moving on. They said we're at the point now where he could just even be straight up cut.
Well, you did resign Madison, so
and that's the thing. And that's the thing. People got to realize it sucks to see a guy like Cook go, but with O'Connell coming over and the offense we're running, we aren't a running team anymore.
Yeah,
we're throwing the rock. Like, it is what it is, and adding a guy like Quentin Johnston to the fold, I think learning under a guy like JJ is going to be huge for his career, especially his upside. But he can feel comfortable coming in right away, playing right away, but also not having to go out and be like, damn, I'm a first rounder and I got to be that guy. Like he doesn't have that pressure to come in. So he can go out there first year and put up great freaking numbers, possibly be in the running for offensive rookie of the year because he's alongside a guy like JJ and JJ's going to get doubled. Yep. That leaves him open, and he can make some noise.
Yep. I like that a lot. Now, some people would argue Vikings are 28th in points against, 31st in yards against. Yep. There's a lot of defenders on the board. But you did bring over Marcus Davenport, edge. You did bring over cornerback and Byron Murphy. So you did shore up a little bit of the defensive holes that you had. But
I think the only other way this could go is maybe if Quentin Johnston's already gone, and Deonte Banks is still there, and we probably go Deonte Banks, possibly.
Okay.
But the way the draft board is right now, I can't see us going after a guy like Iowa State, Will McDonald at edge. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. I mean, I feel in my gut since the season ended, I truly, I knew Thielen's time was coming to an end. So for me, I just felt like being in a spot like 23, if you're staying put or even remotely around that area, I feel like this is a spot where you go grab a number 2 receiver. Mm-hmm. I just feel when you got a guy like O'Connell and his high-flying offense and probably the last year of Kirk Cousins, and if you're not getting that quarterback of the future, you're not necessarily in win now mode, but you're going to be that team who my guess is probably more middle of the pack compared to last year, but we're still going to be a very hard offense to stop.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with it. And I just feel like, from what I've read and heard, Quentin Johnston or Zay Flowers is a very good possibility at this pick.
Okay. For me, Jacksonville at 24, a team that overachieved last year getting into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But with that number 1 pick, I definitely feel like the production there, he underachieved, and that is Trey Walker, edge out of Georgia. I think the offense is going to be pretty good this year. 10th in offensive yards and points last year, first year under Doug Peterson. Trevor Lawrence looked like he's a potential top 5 quarterback somewhere down the line here. The defense struggled. Obviously, like I said, last year. They tried to shore that up a little bit in the draft. Really didn't work in the offseason. Haven't really made too many moves this year, but they did make a lot last year. And hopefully under Doug Peterson's second year in the system, they'll be able to perform a little better. Not a lot of offseason moves made. They franchise tagged Evan Ingram, who did come up very strong at the end of the season last year.
Yep.
Calvin Ridley they will get off his suspension from the NFL. So this offense has really the potential to be explosive this year. And with that being the case, I think they go defense here. And you just mentioned them, Will McDonald. I think if Trey Walker isn't proven to be an every down back, let's get everything we can out of you. First down, second down, bring this guy in third down, whatever the case may be, and just alternate you guys' minutes. Like you said, you can't have enough edges. If we think this guy can be productive as Trey Walker at the 24th pick, I don't see why we wouldn't take him. So that's my pick here for Jacksonville.
Now we're getting to the point of the backside of the draft now where it's just like there's going to be guys that we don't expect to go in the first round that go in the first round. It always happens. Mm-hmm. These back end teams in the first round, they they're either trading or they're reaching a little bit for the guys they want to make sure they get.
Yeah.
So this is a tricky one for me. I think with New York. Yeah, you bring in Paris Campbell, but you traded for Darren Waller, which was huge, and hopefully it's a kind of rejuvenation for him in his career. And
that's a monster move right there.
It's and Daniel Jones has got no excuses. Like this, there's just he didn't play terrible last year, but I'm just not a believer in a guy like Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
So but there's no excuse to not. When you got a guy like Darren Waller, injury history, obviously with Sterling Shepard, but he is a solid receiver.
Yeah.
Darius Slayton, not shabby, but you still got Saquon Barkley. And the Paris Campbell signing is very interesting because he's a guy who I truly believe has a lot of upside.
I do too. He's one of the few Ohio State guys.
He
that
just
I like
can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
So,
do they still have number 18, Hodgins? Is that his name?
Oh yeah,
So they got him, and they also have Bellinger still as their backup tight end.
So there are weapons.
I agree
out
with
there.
you 100%. No excuses.
There are weapons out there. So this is a little bit of a tough pick because I mean, where we're at. I mean, what do you really do here? You're probably more so looking for some more defensive help, in my opinion. Because I mean, when you got a guy like Wink Martindale calling your freaking defense, you can't have enough talent out there.
Yeah, because he's gonna send them.
Like
he'll get you 6 guys hurt a year just off his scheme alone.
But at the same time, part of me really likes the possibility of adding another weapon to this offense because of where we're at in the draft.
What does our board look like? Can you tell everybody right now who are our top 5, 6 on the board?
So the top remaining guys right now on the board is tackle Anton Harrison, tackle Broderick Jones, running back Bijan Robinson, tight end Michael Mayer, and receiver Zay Flowers.
Okay.
Followed by also receiver Jordan Addison. So those are your top 6 guys left on the board.
Okay.
Obviously after that, we're getting into the territory of probably guys I'm not more familiar with, and I haven't read up on a whole lot. So because I'm more invested in these top guys, seeing where they go. So. Right. You got to pay me a little more to, be invested into those later round guys. But
500
because of where we're at in the draft, and obviously we're just doing a mock, I think you got to kind of go all in on making sure you paid this quarterback Daniel Jones a lot of money, like he's one of the top guys. So now you better surround him with some weapons. So in this sense, I don't know if I want to go Zay Flowers because I feel like they got a guy in Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. They tend to always have these smaller guys.
Similar builds,
so
5'9" guys.
So for me, I'm going Jordan Addison here, wide receiver USC. I feel like he would be more of that go up and get it type receiver for him. Obviously, you got Darren Waller for that as well. But if you already got a smaller speedster in Sterling Shepard, hopefully he stays healthy this year. Darius Slayton, you pair him up with Jordan Addison. I mean, that offense and Saquon in the backfield, they could really do something. I mean,
on paper, it looks phenomenal.
It really does.
Yeah.
That NFC East is going to be crazy again.
Yep. I like that move. I think that's the right move right there. Our top 2 guys on the board are tackles, but they got one last year and the year before, and they're pretty much short of that position. So I think going forward, it's just about getting those guys to surround the interior. They kind of doing it like Philly has. Thibodeau and
I just hate that
Neal
I left someone there for fucking Dallas.
I mean, he's going there. And
now that someone trades up for him, bro.
And I'll tell you why he's going there.
Because I'll tell you what, he only has 2 pre-draft visits scheduled, and one is Philly, one's Tampa Bay.
I'll tell you why he's going there. I don't know what you're talking about, but here's what I'm doing. We know Dallas, 26. Big star on the helmet, very appealing destination. So the Dallas Cowboys, they're bringing wide receiver Brandon Cooks, and they trade for defensive back Stephon Gilmore to put on the opposite side of Trayvon Diggs. They also re-signed Cooper Rush, who's proven to be a very good backup in this league. Maybe in that Gardner Minshew, Andy Dalton category, but maybe not. Who knows? They also bring back Leighton Vander Esch, the linebacker who had a very promising start to his career, but it's kind of tailed off and kind of spun out in these past few years, but last year he did actually have a little bit of a resurgence. The big move, I think, is bringing Tony Pollard back, but they do franchise tag him. He is coming off an injury. Yeah. And because they let go of Zeke, I think this is a very easy pick, and it's Bijan Robinson, man. The Texas running back is going to stay in Texas, and it's just what the doctor ordered, man. A superstar offensively that Jerry Jones can play with, and it's another toy to throw in the toy box.
Such a shame.
It just works that way, man.
All right.
It just works perfectly that way.
Next pick, obviously, we're on 27, Buffalo Bills. For me, I think I think this is a little bit of a reach here based on where we're at. But I think it's needed because Buffalo Bills, especially down the stretch, I feel like their O-line struggled a bit.
Yeah.
And I really, especially the interior, and I think as we get further along into his career.
Interior.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, because look, this is the route.
I think I know where you're going with that.
I'm going Osiris.
That is a little bit of a stretch. But I had him in the first round as well. So
I think Osiris from Florida is truly the probably strongest interior lineman in this draft.
Yep.
He's hard to move off the ball, and I feel like he's a guy who fits like a team like Buffalo Bills. And the further longer we get into Josh Allen's career, he's even said it recently. He's got to change up his play style. Mm-hmm. He can't keep taking these hits that he's taking and taking off with the football. He just can't. He's got to start to become more of that pocket passer. I mean, you can still scramble outside the pocket, obviously, but you got to start protecting your body so you can have a longer career. And I think that starts with the guys up front. And for them to get a guy like Osiris Torrance in this, regardless if like I said, it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think regardless, Osiris is early second round pick. So It's not that far of a stretch, but at the same time, I think this is a pick that is needed. And where we're sitting with the draft board, it just makes sense.
This is obviously the part of the draft where you're dealing with good teams more times than not. Unless somebody's traded back, all these guys are contenders. They all have good quarterbacks. So I will see a run of tackles and guards maybe in this little area right here. So this isn't far-fetched at all to go Osiris Torrance there. Next pick, 28, we have Cincinnati, who they brought over offensive tackle Orlando Brown from the Kansas City Chiefs, and then they re-signed a linebacker, Jermaine Pratt. So not a lot of big moves, but we do see, like I said, in this part of the draft, these guys want to protect their quarterback. So you go guard to protect and to help that run game in Buffalo. We see Cincinnati pick up Orlando Brown. I also see that defense taking a step back, losing Jesse Bates.
Right, yeah.
The fact that Brian Branch is off the board changes up my thoughts here for Cincinnati a little bit. Them losing their tight end, I think the only pick here for me is Michael Mayer.
I was going to say Michael Mayer too, but then you think about them signing Irv Smith, and it's like, do they really go out and get a first round tight end though? I mean,
Irv Smith doesn't move the needle for me at this point.
He doesn't for me either. I'm just saying I feel like and it's only a 1 year signing that he signed for, but I feel like it's kind of like that prove it deal type deal with them,
Sure.
So I don't know. I feel like Michael Mayer is obviously going to have a better career than Irv Smith. I mean, we've already seen what Irv Smith is capable of. He's very injury prone as well, but he just doesn't. He doesn't look like a typical tight end when you watch him play. He's a smaller bodied tight end.
Yeah,
and I don't like that about him. So for me, I don't mind the Michael Mayer pick at all. It makes sense, especially if you're gonna be more of a high flying offense like you want to be. I mean, they got so many weapons out there still. Getting Orlando Brown to come there and protect Joe Burrow is so big. I mean, that's huge. But I do think, on that note, though, Orlando Brown has made some very good career moves for himself. I mean, Lamar
Money
Jackson,
in the bank.
Patrick
Shorty,
Mahomes,
what you drink.
No, Joe Burrow. I mean, dude, you can't knock him. So, pick 29, New Orleans Saints. Boy, man,
this is a tough one.
This is because look, you signed Derek Carr. You got Chris Olave. You got Michael Thomas coming back. You got Alvin Kamara.
Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams now too. Yep. Look, they got a plethora of weapons at your disposal right now.
My guy Jameis Winston.
Yeah, that's true. He came back. So for me, man.
But you need a lot still.
You do need a lot, and that's look. I mean, you'd think you'd want to get a little bit of defensive help here. I think at this point. The problem is, I couldn't tell you who's the best defensive player left.
I went with my guy out of Kansas State. Actually, I went with Mozzie Smith.
I'm going Mozzie Smith from Michigan. I feel like D-line help. You lose 2 edge rushers this offseason in New Orleans, one being Marcus Davenport. I just feel like New Orleans needs to get back to having that type of defensive mentality that they used to have, where teams just hated playing them. I think they've lost that a little bit, and now it seems like they got this, which is weird because their defensive coordinator has now become the head coach, but their offense on paper looks a hell of a lot better than their defense.
Yeah, it does.
So I would go out and get that defensive help. Mozzie Smith here, D-line on Michigan, pick 29. That's what I feel like. These last few picks are always a little difficult just because you don't know what the hell is going to happen.
All right, and to wrap up my last pick, obviously the number's a little off. We have Miami forfeiting their first round pick, so at 30, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I had them earlier at 10, and at 10 I think I took Kalijah Kancey, interior defensive lineman. Here, I'm going to go offensive lineman, and I'm going to say Broderick Jones here.
Okay.
I think the upside on him is a little bit higher than it is on Anton Harrison. They both come in with a couple of things on the scouting report that doesn't make you jump out of your chair when you read that. But when you watch the film, you definitely see those things pop up. But more times than not, these guys are really good when you cut the film on. So for that reason, I'll go Broderick Jones. I did kind of want to stretch and get his teammate, or not his teammate, old dude out of Ohio State, the monster. 6'8", 375. I forget his name.
Who was that?
He's coming up here in a second.
DeJuan Jones?
DeJuan Jones.
He's a freak, bro.
He's a monster.
Like crazy. Man. Last pick of the first round, and we are at Kansas City, the Super Bowl champs.
Close it out, man.
Man, oh man. As the reigning Super Bowl champs, what do you do here? What do you do?
What's the board look like?
My first instinct is to go Zay Flowers and give more help to Patrick Mahomes because but then he's another smaller guy that you already got. Sky Moore, you already got what's his name from Kadarius Toney.
Yeah.
So and then you got Valdez Scantling. So receiver doesn't really feel like you need to go out and get that for the last pick of the first round.
I like all 5 of these guys right here. Anton Harrison.
And Zay Flowers. But I feel like you could stand to probably bolster that defense a little bit more just because it was pretty shaky last year. It was a little Vikings-esque, if you'd say. But I would like to see probably a little defensive help here for Kansas City just to keep them, not missing a step and keep rolling. So man, you drafted Trent McDuffie last year for cornerback. You still got Justin Reed at safety. Boy, but I think that right cornerback spot could probably...
You did get Carl Loftus last year in the draft as well.
You got Danny Shelton.
I think you're getting off of Frank Clark. Or was that a rumor that I saw?
Oh, he's not in the depth chart.
Not on the depth chart, so no Frank Clark. So that is something you're going to have to replace.
Yep.
There are a couple of edge players there, but there is also a defensive back there that you can put on the opposite side of Duffy. There's also a tackle there. You did sign Jawan Taylor, but you can also shore up that position. Obviously, I said it a couple rounds ago. This is what these teams do. They make sure that their franchise quarterback is protected. So you could see a little Anton Harrison here out of Oklahoma. No wrong pick here. Kansas City's in a good spot. All positions of need, and you don't have to reach for any of them, honestly.
So for me, just based on what I already read on this guy, I'm going edge rusher out of Kansas State, and I'm not going to pronounce the last name, so I'm just going to call him Felix by his
Felix
first name.
the Cat, my guy.
I feel like getting this edge rusher at this spot in the draft, last pick of the first round for Kansas City, him and Karlaftis being young guys on the edge, and Karlaftis with a year under his belt, I think this guy can come in and play right away. And look, I trust Kansas City's coaching staff to get anyone up to speed and to be productive. So I feel like any route they take with this last pick, whether they trade it, whether they keep it, I can't question them. So, but for me, I'll go with the edge rusher out of Kansas State and close it out that way. I feel like that would be a solid pick for them. But I feel like they could really hit on any defensive spot and be okay. Yeah. So yeah, we're a week away from this draft, man. I feel like this is gonna be one of the more interesting drafts we've seen in a few years at least. Just based on, I feel like there's gonna be quite a lot of movement in this first round. But if it goes this way, I won't be mad at it. I think this would be a good first round draft.
Yeah, I think we're looking at least 2 trades, 3 trades in that first round, probably in that 7 to 14-ish range.
Definitely the mid range, back end of the top or back end of top 10 to that mid range. I just because with the way the draft board falls, it's not when you get to that point. There's not a whole lot of talent there that just wows you.
Yeah, it doesn't really catch your eye. They're all going to be, I feel, solid players, but there's really no superstar there.
Yeah.
And when you're in that 7 to 10 range, you're kind of looking for a superstar.
Yeah, and I feel like I would say the way to look at this draft this year, especially this first round, not a whole lot of star potential besides the handful of guys that we've talked about at the top half, but there's plenty of guys in this first round who will make a name for themselves and will be very high-end contributors to their teams.
For sure. So after about just under 3 months off, we came back and we did it. How'd you feel about it? I like this board. If it shakes out this way, like you said, I don't really see any team. It's like, oh, man, you really did that? Outside of me personally, I feel like Washington, Will Levis is not a first-round guy.
But see, I like how this felt for us.
This seems pretty, yeah.
I like this. I like this from the one mock draft that I did do for sure, and then last night going back and forth on. There's so many scenarios I see playing out in this draft that it's hard to really nail down a mock. You're like, damn, that's fucking A1
for sure.
Like they're all like,
it's like guessing tourney games.
You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like having a year under our belt, going through a full season of this pod and really diving into these teams, because besides this past year, like I'm more so just strictly Vikings. I'm not diving into teams like that. But now that I'm doing this and really learning the ins and outs of each team and each move they're making, whether it's coaches or players, I feel a lot more confident in this draft board than I did last year's draft board.
For sure.
So, and I think, to be honest, I think that there's going to be a few picks on this board that are hits next week.
I don't like anybody as much as I like Sauce, but overall, I feel like the talent is a little better.
Yeah, I think across the board better.
Especially because I'm going to have more potential of points with 4 quarterbacks going in the first round.
And that's the thing. And that's also part of the reason why I feel like we're going to see quite a bit of movement in this first round, because teams feel the same way, where I think their draft boards are probably not all alike because they all have different needs, but for the most part, they have a lot of these guys kind of ranked similarly, and it's all a matter of, do you want to go get this guy, or do you think they're going to fall to you?
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to watch in that regard. But I do like this draft board, how it fell for us. I do think we'll hit on a couple of these. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more different picks out there next week than ours. But I do think we'll hit on a few of these, though, from our picks. So I just feel like especially when you look at the 20s, the 20s guys that we have here, a lot of these guys could be in those teens to right after top 10.
Yeah.
So that's what I really get excited about this draft board, because I feel like we kind of like have this spaced out pretty damn evenly for talent, where you can't be mad at any of these picks.
No. I like the board. I really do. Did you have any sleepers that you wanted to touch on? I have a few. Tank Dell, wide receiver out of Houston. Little 5'8", 5'9" receiver. Ran about a 4.5, but he looks a lot faster on film. Obviously, my guy Jahmyr Gibbs. Outside of Bijan, I think he is the best running back in the class.
Nah, I do like that one. Yeah.
He transferred to Alabama. I can't remember from where. I want to say Georgia Tech or something like that, but I'm probably way off. I like the running back out of Texas A&M, Devon. I can't pronounce his last name. Achani, and I like Tajay Spears out of Tulane, halfback as well. I watched him play in his bowl game.
Yeah,
he tore it up. So these are some of my sleepers that I think are going to be productive at the next level. I think my guy at Texas A&M is a little small, but if you put a little weight on him, he can be very effective. Maybe not an every down back, but a gadget guy where I could see him used in a way kind of like a Pacheco last year in Kansas City, where you can give me 800 yards, 8 touchdowns. I'm very fine with that.
No, and I didn't come up with any sleepers or anything like that, just because to me I like doing that, but it's just I get so frustrated because it's so hard to really hit on these sleepers, because that's the fun part about the draft and going into next season is finding out who these guys are that we overlooked.
Yeah.
And they're starting to ball out and make a name for themselves. Those are the guys that I really, because the later round guys tend to always be a few where you're like, this guy's a superstar in the league, and I didn't even know who he was. Like that, those guys are the fun. I mean, think about it. You got Stephon Diggs drafted fifth round, and now he's one of the best in the league. Like those are the type of stories that I love hearing about. So I'm excited to see where this draft class ranks. And yeah, I mean, honestly, if you love football, obviously the NFL season is a great time of the year. But for me, off season is just above that, I think. And draft night might be the ultimate night of all football.
I think that's why a big reason fantasy is popular, because this is all fantasy shit. And this is damn near as fun as watching the game.
Exactly. I mean, because it gives you a little bit of control of or say of how shit goes in your head. You know what I mean? And that's the fun, because when you can act like a little bit of a GM or try to think like they think, like that's what makes it fun. Because not only are you making these picks in a mock draft, but you're trying to think like a guy in a front office or a coach would think, and you're trying to really rank these guys, because let's be honest, college football, there's so many teams and players that I don't learn about these guys until this time of the year, until I start listening about the draft combine and their pro days and all this. Like this is when I really start diving into players and see. Obviously, you got your first round talent that majority of.
Yeah.
Well, once you get to that second to seventh round talent, there might be guys you've heard of throughout the year from games here and there, but for the most part, you really got to do a deep dive and read stats and read their draft profiles and
watch film. And
so it's
see their trajectory throughout the season and all type of shit.
Yeah, I mean
competition.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, but I mean these last 2 months they've flown by since the Super Bowl ended in our last episode. I mean, if they fly by like this, we're gonna be at the season in no time. But yeah, I think next week is gonna be fun. We record live and get our reaction. We put that out a day or two later. But to really kind of, I think because of how long the first round is and how long they take about talking about each pick, we can really sit there and dive in on what we agree with and not agree with.
I like that a lot, actually. With that being said, this was episode 1 of the off-season edition of Griddyiron Gang. I'm good if you are. Anything else you got for the people?
No, obviously, we took a couple month
to be back.
Couple month hiatus, obviously, but there's only so much you can really do after the Super Bowl in between that and when off-season really starts or the new league year starts. And even when, we technically could be putting out content when free agency opens up and all that, but I feel like it's just you guys already kind of know who's getting signed where and whatnot. So
you're watching it on ESPN.
There's not much to talk about. I mean, and you can give us feedback if you want that stuff. We can definitely add that in next year going forward.
Sure.
But I think once we start getting closer to the draft, like we're a week away now, giving you our mock draft takes, and then next week you'll see our reaction to the first round and whatnot, and then obviously it really starts to pick up end of July when training camp's getting rolling and we start getting preseason football, because that's when you're starting to really get a feel for who's making the teams, who's not, what rosters we're working with, what big injuries are happening. I mean, that's the stuff we really want to come to you and talk to you about, and obviously we get into our groove once week 1 starts. I mean, we get those 2 episodes out per week, and I just feel, that's the meat and potatoes of everything right there. And like, we can, work on putting more off-season content out if you guys wish, but like you said, there's only so much we can really dive into with those initial signings or trades.
Although this draft is probably better than last year's draft, this offseason is nowhere close. I mean, we had guys. Tom Brady was retired.
The free agent class was
phenomenal. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams.
Last year, yeah. This year's free agent class was nothing to write home about. And that's also why we kind of didn't want to do much, because, look, why am I talking about Alexander Madison being signed?
It's Rodgers and Lamar this year. That's pretty much all you need to know.
You get the same, and look, we're getting the same news sources as you guys, so we're just here to give our takes, and to make this a weekly deal in the off season is a tough task, because like I said, there's only so much you can talk about. I guess we could technically make it more of a Vikings Ravens theme in the off season if you wanted to as well.
Just dive deeper into our own teams for sure.
So that's a thought too. But yeah, we obviously want feedback on this episode, because you guys tuning in and watching us talk about this stuff, we want to have more feedback from you for content and more interaction, obviously, to interact with our fans. And look, it's a long season, we got off season now, but it's only going to get better and better as we keep going and growing this thing. So we want help from y'all. So
yes, indeed. With that being said, we appreciate y'all. Episode 1 in the books. Until next time.